I just got here. Good morning, everybody. I guess we should introduce ourselves. This is not all of us, but this is a good portion of us. Some of us aren't here because we're either busy or apparently showering or something else. But
we're doing things to keep BADCamp running right now.
Yeah, exactly, keeping us from falling into the flaming pit. My name is David Huang. I used to work at Acquia. That's probably where you've seen me before. I work at AAA now, and I've been doing BADCamp for about 5 years.
I'm Matt. I've been doing BADCamp for a long time, and I'm really excited to talk about the process we use to run the event and some of the insights from this year and from last year. I assume a lot of folks in the room are either do events or interested in events or helping out and that kind of stuff, so that's some of what I think is fun to talk about.
My name is Andrew Malice. I work at Calaguna, and I've been involved with BADCamp and the Higher Education Summit for 5 years. I'm curious, how many of you are on organized local events, local Drupal events currently?
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Amy Denman with Book 42, and this is my first year helping with BADCamp, although we've been doing sessions and things for years, and it was wonderful joining the team this year. It was really great.
I'm Kate Miller, and I had Violet midway through the planning process this year. So she may have things to say. Is that it all? And also been involved for 4 years, I can remember. But I'm happy that new people are still.
Hi, my name is John Peck. I work at Four Kitchens, kind of like long-time listener, first-time caller. I have to be someone who just attended for a couple of years, was helped out with DrupalCon LA, and was like, well, wait a second, I should probably do something local, and so here I am. It's been great. I like it. Yeah.
I'm Bob Gilletta. I'm a freelancer. I've been doing BADCamp for about 5 years.
My name's Anne. I handle sponsorship dollars with Matt, and I've been with BADCamp for about 5 years.
So I'm sorry. Who came to BADCamp last year? Okay, so who noticed the not just the geographic difference, but the overall difference in BADCamp from last year to this year? I guess the point we should probably start the story is we about killed ourselves putting together BADCamp last year, and I think it's safe to say that for the majority of people on this panel here, we actually didn't plan on doing it again. We were like, oh, BADCamp's over. We did it. We blew it up. We can quit and retire. And it was about 2 weeks after that Matt called us to have dinner together, and I think it was we were at Gather, which is a restaurant just around the corner, right from Berkeley, and there was thoughts about, hey, why don't we do it again? I mean, we literally hadn't caught up on sleep yet, and Matt had brought up, hey, let's do it again, and there was like, okay, maybe, and then some people who were totally out, and that was it. And then 2 weeks later, Matt invited us again to get dinner at this formerly vegan restaurant that had Whiskey Wednesdays, and ordered around for everybody, and then we took a poll again. Hey, who's in? And there were more people who were in.
And the main reason was because we missed hanging out with each other every week. So we were like, it's like childbirth. You forget the pain and do it all over again. Those are probably the ones with children.
Too soon. We're still making traction here. And then 2 weeks after that, we went to Whiskey Wednesdays again and did a poll, and then we were all in, and which is why we have BADCamp again this year.
Hey, Carson, who are you?
Yay.
Oh, yeah, Carson, introduce yourself.
I'm Carson Black. I worked on the website. I work for UC Davis normally.
Carson's also been a long time right now. You are officially a long time.
Yeah, a few years at least, yeah.
You can't remember you're a long time.
Yeah.
And we think BADCamp's a pretty unique event. This is now the 9th year we do it. It does about 1,500 people across 4 days with a lot of different events, summits that we sort of expand and find new ideas for, trainings where we have a lot of topical stuff, the sessions, the parties, and then a lot of other stuff people do. But it's like last year was a lot of work because there's a lot more setup, but it's always a pretty big just overall job. That's why there's so many people who spend so much time to make it real. That it's got about $100,000 of budget to pay for and get the things, which involves a lot of conversations with sponsors and a whole lot of individuals who will support BADCamp by buying hoodies or t-shirts. It also involves, dealing with multiple vendors across multiple different parts of campus and beyond, about getting insurance in case anyone slips and falls at the event. And also I think, and this for me is really important, is that like we're all part of this larger professional ecosystem of people building websites or helping with Drupal websites. And I think that there's the aspect of that is very work and very just like, this is my job, I will learn and do good with this. But I think that, like, for me, Drupal and the open source community has always been really important because it is about people, it's about new ideas, it's about trying, experimenting stuff, seeing what works. And so I think BADCamp's really unique in that we try to do different summits and ideas and like, oh, let's just accept, we always avert, a lot of us with the Burning Man, so we have radical inclusion, so let's just accept all sessions and run 160 simultaneous events, which we did so years ago. And I feel everyone brings their own.
Too.
And we now have no sessions at 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. Blocked off as the Andrew Malice memorial session. But I would say, sort of the last thing I'll say, just my comments is I feel one of the great things about BADCamp is everyone brings their own energy and the things they like and care about to this conversation. And because we have so many different viewpoints, I think a lot of that really happens. But if it's like, oh, we like, hey, like pinball, let's go put those pinball machines there. If we like this kind of content, let's do this summit. And I think that's really awesome.
We're also missing 2 people from the stage here that are represented, or 3 people actually, on here. And actually a 4th. I'm going to specifically call the person in the upper right here, Patrick Story, who didn't know any of us and was more or less drafted by Amy to be our volunteer coordinator. And that guy's killed it this year. And unfortunately, he's not in this room right now because he's out killing it somewhere. But he just kind of dropped out of nowhere and just did all the things. Upper left is Megan Sweet, who's also been a long-timer. She's in got an educational situation right now, so that she couldn't be as active, but she's plays a lot of glue roles on the team. And then Darius on the middle right here has been our designer historically, but pivoted to running a summit, which is kind of, you don't expect your designer like, hey, I don't want to design anymore, I want to run a summit. Like, great, run your summit. And I want to do my summit on personal privacy and digital rights and security on the web. Great, totally run with it.
And so we had Genevieve, who's actually sitting in the audience, who stepped in and did a lot of the oh crap design work.
And on the lower left, it goes without saying, I think she's busy taking a shower right now, Jen Lampton, who is in many ways the heart and soul of this team, who's been here probably the longest out of all of us, and essential portion of this team. Our main Berkeley wrangler, the person who, she's the smiley face, and I sort of tag teamed with her to be the punching fist behind the smiling face, insofar as we got getting our facility sorted out. So yeah, there's a lot of us. We actually meet a lot in person, and I think it's actually really important to meet a lot in person. This year, I took on the role of organizing all of the get-togethers that got the meetings together, and I feel it's really important to meet together in person as often as possible. And in previous years, we had meetings that were scattered throughout, and we'd have them at Chapter 3 or at Pantheon or random places. And while good, people get sick of going to meetings. And so this year, we really tried to emphasize that come socialize and have a meeting on the side as well. And I think that was a really cool vibe where people would come, we played board games, we would do vegan takeout, we'd go to drinks and dinner afterwards, but otherwise reserve this night in this week to do quote-unquote BADCamp, of which only an hour or so of which is actual logistics or budgeting or anything like that. It was like a 2 to 3 hour block of just hanging out with your friends, building relationships, throwing your crazy ass ideas out there, and maybe we get an agenda done too while we're at it. And having done it for, I guess, 8. Yeah.
Because a lot of us are very busy to, spend 2 to 3 hours, but we do a lot of it virtually, and it's really flexible that way too.
Not only busy, but the commute's really long if you're coming from Canada or Las Vegas or
Sacramento.
Yeah, or Sacramento, yeah.
And this web technology, which John Peck introduced us to, helped us a lot in terms of this Zoom.us kind of things. It really works on phones. You'll see me just in my phone walking around. Works on computers. You can call in. It does reset every hour if you don't have it.
Yeah.
So that's a fun little fire drill we do every week. Like, okay, the thing's ending. Let's go to the next one. but it keeps people engaged, and then it's also a good jumping off point if people have to do other stuff, because I feel there's a socializing layer and there's an organized layer. I feel people could come in or out depending on how their life works for them.
Yeah. Well, and also we should speak kudos to Cal and Luna for actually physically hosting us over in Oakland, and actually, having a dedicated meeting space and also, use the facilities, and we may have drank one of their beers.
Across our 21 meetings.
But yeah, it's having the regularity of the event also, I mean, of the meeting, and having an agenda, having having that kind of element of, there is a social, piece of it, and people who genuinely enjoy being in the same room with each other, but we also front-loaded, got the work done, made sure that everything that needed to be discussed, got decided, delegated, recorded, and then we play Resistance or whatever.
Yeah, I want to echo on the delegation thing. I think this year more than ever, people had to delegate a lot of their previous duties to other people, to new people, to people who had just joined, because we were busy or we took on new roles. None of us here are paid or given time by our job. Well, Matt's got founder equity, so that's different. None of us are given explicit time to work on BADCamp by our jobs. So it's something we definitely do on the side, and we make time for it. So
Actually, I got a little bit of time.
except for Carson. Thank you, UC Davis.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you,
actually, Patrick and Genevieve are completely paid to do all the BADCamp
Oh,
work.
thank you, Hook 42.
No, the only reason I volunteered them is because that was part of their job, because we've aligned Patrick to do community outreach
Cool,
for a lot of
okay.
things. And so it just aligned with that. And people were having babies and a lot of people were busy, and these guys have been doing this for years, and it's a lot of work. So I came in and I'm just floored about how many connections you guys have and how seamless actually it went. Even it felt rocky sometimes, but everybody got connections and things moved. This isn't a massive event to actually coordinate with Berkeley and all the vendors and everything. It's amazing. But we brought people in from the team, and Lindsay helped too as well. Just,
Has anyone planned a wedding or married?
Yeah.
It's like planning like a dozen weddings simultaneously.
With a lot of people getting married. So.
Do you guys
A lot
have
of
any
runs
questions?
here.
A lot of
I'm just curious if people have any questions, like did you want to learn or know or?
Yeah. What was the first BADCamp like?
The first BADCamp, so the way BADCamp sort of got rolling was Jen and this guy Tao Starbo were friends, and Tao worked at Citrus, which was like it's on our Berkeley campus, and he was able to get like 3 rooms for talks, and it's like Drupal 4.7, Drupal like 5's around the horizon, and people came out. The only thing was you get sponsors gave some money, and there was this banner that was made that had the sponsor logos on it, which paid for the pizza and like I think some drinks. And it was one day, and people came, and there was just one day of talks. And then and sort of what happened is over the next sort of 8 years, it sort of grew a lot, sort of organically, because Drupal was growing, and Berkeley was very supportive because Berkeley was getting more Drupal. And then there was this real moment in 2010 where basically all the folks who were doing BADCamp there was a Drupal con that was in San Francisco. And so all of us worked on the Drupal con as the thing, and that was like at Moscone, and that was like 3,000 people, and like it was a more business event, but it also had a lot of good community vibes. And sort of after that, we really liked working together, and we thought doing something at scale in San Francisco was a really positive thing for the community, because a lot of people fly in. And we sort of then like basically added 800 people to the event or so, and then started to grow it, and sort of turned into this kind of thing. And over the years, stuff has added. So after DrupalCon SF, we added a lot of trainings, which is, in my opinion, probably the biggest hit of the conference. It's for those who aren't familiar with sort of the business and mechanics of this, like all the trainers do this for like a living and charge actually a lot of money to sit through these training classes and get this knowledge. Like it's very valuable stuff. And then all volunteer their time for BADCamp to do that same training they would otherwise charge. And so we have 600-700 people that'll come in and get a day or so or 2 days of this unprofessional help. And it's a lot of new people, and it's a lot of sort of people who are like learning and getting more into Drupal, which I think is very positive. But it's cool, yeah. Like a lot of stuff, and then some stuff goes away too. We've had like summits, like we had like a product summit that we did for a few years when install profiles were hot. Stopped doing that. We added new summits like the security summit, and then we had a DevOps summit. We merged it with the configuration management summit, and I think that's really helpful because you can try to do stuff and then stop doing it and sort of see where the energy is.
But the early BADCamps, like the third one or so, the sponsor area was the size of this classroom.
Yeah.
And it was
In
like
the basement.
Yeah, in the basement.
That's like
I remember
this.
Lila bought on a tiny little desk.
Yeah, no windows.
Yeah,
We
it was
put-
hot.
We bought some potato chips and put them downstairs and told people to go down and get them.
Yeah. But it's, I mean, it's a testament to the team gathering whatever resources they can under like pretty strong financial constraints at the beginning, and it's sweat equity really into the BADCamp to make it happen and make those connections with the universities and other vendors and trainers. So it's a big deal.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about learning every year and refining the process every year. You know, this year when we spun up agendas, when we spun up templates, when we spun up things like production schedules, we just cloned last year's versions, which are clones from last year's versions, which are clones from last year's versions. And each year we refine it, we add more stuff, we take stuff out. We have actuals to go against in our budget from the previous year, so we can say, oh, we're going to blow this out this year, or this is a gut check on what we're going to, you know, what we need. And what
attendee list as well arose.
Yeah, attendee list, et cetera. We build a mailer based on last year's mailer, et cetera. And so the team has stayed remarkably stable. You know, we've had babies, we have weddings, we have people starting new companies, we have people quitting their old jobs. But the team is, for all intents and purposes, pretty stable year in, year out. So we quote unquote know how to do this now, right? Like, and that gives us the freedom to experiment and or.
Do we? I don't know. What do you guys?
Yeah, actually, that's what do you guys?
Yeah, actually, so we think we know how to do this, right? But it gives, and that sort of feeling gives us the freedom to experiment a little with content, with moving venues, if all these other things are stable. So we're not dealing with internal instability as well as external.
You said you had volunteers. How many do you have?
Oh, Patrick? I know. Where's the Google
Probably
spreadsheet?
not.
Yeah, we have about 50 individual volunteers who cover a variety of different shifts who are not part of the core organizing team. So core organizing team is probably about 12, 15 people, and then there's an additional 50 or so that show up at the event and help out. And of those 50, about 10 of them are folks that, again, part of the stable organizing, they're part of this stable part of the community that keeps coming back. And like, I know a lot of those people, and we have conversations. We see each other once a year at BADCamp, but we have conversations over the course of
They
the
also
year.
strategically reach out to volunteers. So like my staff said, yes, I'll volunteer. And then what they did is they looked at the class list against the volunteer list and found volunteers that were going to those classes and then hounded them directly.
Yeah.
So that was the difference of how they got volunteers out, because today was like, yeah, I don't know what to do, right? I don't know where to put my name on the spreadsheet. And then all of a sudden she got an email from Kate and Patrick, yeah, and was like, hi, you're going to Belmont, but would you please help with registration? And she was like, yes.
Yeah, because people didn't know what to do, and so they targeted like, oh, you're going to be in this area at this time. Why don't you just come an hour earlier and help? And that was what. And like actually it helped. What if that totally worked? Because somebody in our class that we gave for training, nobody could find the classroom, so we had him volunteer to put signs up to get to like the ball again. And I was like, oh, thank you so much, because he was beyond volunteering, beyond the registration desk.
Just like, oh, help.
And and like your class, for example, is one of my fears, right? Because it's out there, you know?
And
It's remote. So then, you go and you find specific people who are doing that thing and try to coordinate ahead of time. And you don't necessarily know what the challenges are going to be of the location, because it could have been people could get there, but then you guys didn't have Wi-Fi. So it's just to give those people, you empower those people and give them contact information to say, no, call me when you're having issues. Go to your trainer, talk to your trainer.
And I think it was super helpful. Like, you guys do a really good job about having UC Berkeley staff here at all the right places most of the time. So things run very smoothly, like having projectors and.
So what Rami doesn't know is that Bob and I were calling the operations desk probably every 5 minutes or so on Thursday.
I saw a couple of calls.
I was going to say, yeah, like Thursday morning, I was doing a lot of running around. I usually do like 5,000 to 10,000 steps a day, and I did like probably almost 30 just fixing and calling. Yeah. But yeah, and some of that was honestly exasperated by that is a new renovation, and so departments moved, and so things like the tables were completely set up, but the AV equipment wasn't, and it eventually it worked out. I mean, the worst one got started at like 9:25 instead of 9 o'clock, and it worked out.
I think that's part of the magic of BADCamp, that we have built like a social rapport, which makes it easier to deal with the unknown day of, which is increasingly complex at the scale that we're operating. And I don't know that we could like do it
I think
differently.
next year will be better. Last year we were forced to
Right.
San Francisco because the building was under. Well, we actually, you probably remember Twinell, right? We always hang out Twinell, that's super fun magic, we have a dome in the front. Well, technically we were in violation of some fire codes, I guess.
3 years.
So a few years in a row we did that. And then we moved to San Francisco last year, which is a brand new venue, and we literally thought we couldn't do it because the budget, our first initial round budget was like $200,000 over where we needed to be. And we were like, well, I guess that's it, guys. We're done for today. But then we literally were like, okay, what can we cut? We can do our own AV, we can set up our own chairs. And we had an event coordinator, Di, who helps out with DrupalCon because the size was so much bigger in San Francisco than it was in Berkeley.
Because we had to bring in tables, we had to bring
We had
in
to build the
chairs.
space.
We had to build the space. We had to build that room that, people were presenting in at that one end of the facility. So we had to bring people in to hang, pipe, and drape.
Yeah.
And do all of that.
Because the Exploratorium is a big empty space.
Which we thought, we're like, oh yeah, we can do all these things. And we're like, it costs how much to do all these things? So, yeah, long story short.
Union contractors.
Yeah, long story short, we
There were no
literally.
union contractors. That's the deal with that space. That space is now under union contract. So that's why it was a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
Infinitesimally.
I guess so. But the point is that Di was shocked that when we said we could do a call for volunteers, the amount of people that showed up at like 7 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday or whatever, I don't remember what it was.
Yeah,
It was
something
ridiculous,
like
right?
that.
It was like 50 people. We were like, how can we help? Like, we didn't know what to do with them all. And it's like, it was a brand new venue. And coming back to Poly, this is our first time where we've had all of our sponsors and like trainings and stuff. And we learned a bunch of stuff, like pinball machines right beside training. Oh, how does it work very well, right? Which is great now, right? All of us are there. But we live and learn and we try to figure things out. So next year I'm really excited because we get to be here for a while.
Massage is good.
Yeah, massage is good, right? Now we know that there's certain checks that we have to make sure they actually put power on the tables and there is internet mark.
I think to start going to the volunteer kind of ethic, I think one story that I thought was really awesome was 2 years ago, we had gotten locked out of a whole room, and this developer, the CHX, was supposed to present. There was no, we couldn't get in the room, and instead of being like, oh, like the organizer screwed us up, I don't know what to do, he just like, let's all go over to the grass. And he just starts like pontificating about his topic, like with no slides, but like with that same energy, and people are digging it. And they probably have more people tuning in and more of what he's saying because of it. And I think a lot of the power of that kind of experience comes because BADCamp is a free event. It's designed specifically to outreach to people and get people to come together. It's relatively like consensus driven and non-hierarchical with the way that we decide stuff and work stuff. So I think there's a sort of individual empowerment that people feel that like this is a community, it's a valuable community thing, and helping make BADCamp better is about sort of making the community of the Bay Area and of sort of Drupal better. And I think that's why you get a huge call of volunteers that come out, why people are okay with little bits of hiccups, because it's not a $1,000 tech event they paid for and it all has to work. It's like a community, open source, like build it, same with Drupal kind of event. And you can jump in and do cool stuff and make it better. You can work around it, but like having that good energy and mentality is really important. I think people basically share that across the conference.
So what outreach do you do? I only know about Drupal because I've been on the list for several years. I don't see it any other place, so I'm wondering.
I mean, there's a certain amount So we're really good at communicating. In terms of things we do well, I think we're really good at communicating to the existing Drupal base of people, previous attendees, people who are in the Drupal sort of ecosystem. I think it's been difficult in some ways, though, for us to get beyond that, because Drupal it's a harder thing to teach. It's a little bit weird, and trying to like get out into like larger PHP communities or other groups can be hard.
You know, I did meet one attendee who is coming from the Symphony world. Because, you know, so I think with 8 and the cross outreach into the other open source projects, next year will be pretty interesting, because I would expect, this year there was one person who was here that I met that was here because she was a Symphony developer and dreaded her Drupal projects, but came to learn about 8 and was getting excited. And so I think next year will be interesting, because there'll be so many other projects that are incorporated into 8 that will have whole new avenues of attendees to touch.
Yeah, and I think that you guys reach out really well to the edu communities with the summits and things. And I think if we have maybe another targeted summit that does reach out to an external community, like maybe the project management community, and get like enterprise level people coming in or whatever. I mean, there's ideas there to reach out to newer markets and things, but it's just, you know, it's making sure they're targeted and focused.
Right.
Getting
takes a while.
our marketing out to like tell you guys where to go is what feeds going.
Exactly, going out and like pulling more people
Yeah.
from the other, and it's like maybe it's something we start very early now, because it needs to be, these things just don't happen overnight, and so because there's.
We're taking notes.
Oh, thanks, Bob. Awesome.
But Bob is also, Bob writes all the defect user stories on the website. Bob collects new feature user stories on the website. Bob does website QA. Bob collects all the notes that I don't transcribe for the agendas. But Bob's the ultimate utility player. It's not a surprise he's doing this
Amazing,
now.
and like 11 o'clock at night when people are like, my training is, I can't come to training. He's like managing that stuff, and I'm like, thank you, Bob. That's amazing. Yeah.
So do the
But-
vendors help you?
Just on to the point of getting the word out and stuff. I mean, part of it is, you know, I mean, you get excited about it. I was like, it was, you know, pretty late at night after like a heavy metal concert I went to last week, and I was like telling this Uber driver about BADCamp, and because his wife was wanting to learn more stuff about design and PHP and web development, and it was like, you know, I mean, you start telling people about these things, and so you know, it's one of these things where. You know, if you get excited about this kind of stuff, you just start telling everybody. I got the word out as much as I could at UC Davis, and we saw a lot more UC Davis. I saw people from UC Davis here all over the place, so it was awesome. Super excited that those people showed up.
I would love people to start to Drupal in their jobs.
Yeah, that's
like, it's
it.
free conference, and it's incredibly expensive to send. Like I was able to bring a ton of my staff here. And with vendors and stuff, everybody here is like either a shop owner or involved in the community that, you know, I can't code, so my contribution back to this BADCamp, because otherwise I wouldn't have a business or really an awesome life, because Drupal's empowered so much. So the vendors absolutely get involved. There's a lot of people that run the summits that are also shop owners, or they, you know, and they all have a vested interest or whatever, but everybody's really working together to create stuff, and it is incredible how much people. Like I said, Four Kitchens does, like, they have 3 trainings or whatever. And on 42, you guys have resources in the trenches, and, you know, everybody's kind of contributing in their own way. But a lot of people put together things from shops, like you were questioning about. The vendors have a role.
Well, I'm just saying something basic, like, okay, I'm on Pantheon's list, so I've gotten 3 or 4 emails in the last month from them about things that they're doing.
Mhm.
Do they ever send out one about BADCamp, just one
We've done one.
to their list?
We have at Kalamuna, we have a list. We sent out messages specifically to encourage people to come to BADCamp. and
But maybe nobody
so
ever
we
asked
were doing-
Pantheon to do it, you know what I mean? That's, you know.
Well,
if-
because he's with Pantheon. With Pantheon.
I mean, I wrote a blog post about it, and we sent some stuff out. I know some other people sent to different
Chapter 3
lists.
sent a newsletter.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of
we reached out to all of our clients, and we had clients sponsor the camp with money, and we also had clients come and visit and take sessions.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah, but I sort of think, sort of what Carson's saying, there's a lot of also outreach that people who like the event do, that they're part of the summit, and so they go back to their security communities or their edu communities and encourage more people to come next year.
Yeah, so, you know, if you've enjoyed the camp, please go back and tell everybody you know about it, because we could use your help, right? I mean,
Do you think it's enough?
In your ideas?
it'll
always
grow,
do more.
it's the,
It's nothing like enough. I feel people
Yeah.
like if we could have offered 3 times the amount of trainings that we had done, we would have had people come for them. There's a lot of interest in this kind
And
of
a lot
stuff.
of people wanted to give training, but there's like we end up getting like even at the 11th hour we were like, oh, are we going to get told in as a room? So there are venue constraints and everything, and as we planned, even the sessions, there were like 13 sessions, 14 sessions that were like, oh, we're going to try to get you in if we get this one room. So that was Monday night
Yeah.
of this week, Monday night, and that's why the session, why is the schedule not out yet? Well, because we're like, we don't know if we got that room yet, so.
Yeah, the
So you're
sessions-
saying that you've got enough, you're more than filling your capacity.
I think what we were saying
So-
is that if you would love to join us and help us do more outreach, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
At this
Because
point.
there are audiences that we're not reaching because we just don't have the bandwidth, even as a 15-person
Well,
team.
And there's a
Yeah.
character as well that gets it's very community driven. Like the sessions get submitted, and that creates the event. Really, what do people want to present on? What do they want to talk about? And we do encourage people to submit sessions, but ultimately the community everyone proposes a session, and then we try to make up a program that's going to cover, that's going to spread the interest out and work with the logistics. And that changes every year, but
Is that your choke point? I mean, is that the thing? Where's your bottleneck? How come you're not bigger? Where's your bottleneck?
Well, I think to directly answer that, we are very good at promoting in an echo chamber to people within our community. We are not reaching out outside of the community. We are not telling students here about it. We're not
doing
reaching out to
PhD.
other PHP communities and so forth. So we promote within the circles that we know. But I haven't seen something that it's a fair point.
but there's a cap with the session model too, which is why we kind of do the summits,
Yeah.
where we could say, hey, let's put some emphasis on DevOps, and then craft something around that.
Yeah, well, and we also actually earlier we were discussing the name, BADCamp. Should it remain Bay Area Drupal?
There's also, in terms of one bottleneck we do have, the access to space it can be really limiting. One of the reasons why we have sort of flattened out the different kinds of events and do more summits on off-site locations is because there's only so many places you can put people to have these sessions that are connected together. Even now we're in a different building and you sort of have to move around. And that one of the sort of financial realities of conferences is that after about 1,000 or 1,500 people, you end up needing to go to a actually very expensive venue, something like the Moscone Center. And Moscone is, it's $100,000 just to start that conversation with them. And if you want to serve coffee, it's another $72,000 because they pick you off. And then
and if you want Wi-Fi.
oh yeah,
If you want Wi-Fi,
another
it's
100
another
grand.
150.
That's
So
and
there is.
and we're really dedicated to keeping this free. And I think there's an aspect of what can we do with the resources we have? And how can we also inspire other people who live in different places to run events like this? That BADCamp's one of, maybe 50 Drupal camps around the world, and that there's a lot of space for additional sprints and user group meetings and other conferences. And I think we'll sort of be successful if there's a lot of different people talking to different audiences in different places. And BADCamp's one of those, but I'd encourage people to go do more of those, the better.
Yeah, so could you talk a little bit more about ins and outs of security facilities from your description?
We're really fortunate to have Berkeley nearby, and for them to be so amenable to us crashing their space year after year, and quite frankly, putting up with our hijinks from time to time. We
Also, that we have been banished from Dwinell.
Oh, yeah.
We couldn't get any rooms in Dwinell, which was
Yeah.
that building, a bit over because of our previous history of fire code violations. So that's why we are in, we did have to run everything this year through event services, since we did have to pay for every single space. But there is also a contacted event services, Gabby, who we've worked with for This is the third year that we've worked with her. So she knows our event, she knows what we want, she knows what we're trying to do, she knows what our budget is. And
I guess it's like starting is going to be the hardest one, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to find those initial contacts and things, and then once
Yeah.
you establish that over time, it gets easier. And I think I was talking to somebody about New Jersey camp and how it's always in Princeton, and Princeton's supportive and everything, and they keep a very similar structure, so the organizers year after year don't have to worry as much about the venue and everything, and they can focus on curriculum and sessions and getting outreach and everything like that. So it's the first couple times will be hard, but then when it starts leveling out.
And pro tip, don't violate fire codes.
Yeah.
Or if you are, make sure you fall asleep on the tables so they can't
Right.
take them
So they can't
away.
And this is they're also with the size, it breeds complexity when you have multiple spaces, there are different rules and different spaces, and some of them are inside or outside of that like network, and you know, all it becomes complex.
So I would say check out looking for spaces. Universities are some of the best
Good
places
base.
to get spaces because they'll typically offer the rooms on a discounted or free basis. They have often very good and free Wi-Fi access.
Projectors
And
often.
like in the edu space, like 30 or 40% of these new websites are running Drupal. So there's a lot of internal interest already. Plus, they typically Saturday and Sunday is typically space available because they don't have classes. And so I would say like the 50 or 60 Drupal camps, like at least half are based in the university of some sort.
And it's been
But no,
tricky for us on
if
those
during the
weekdays.
week, it can be a little more
For
difficult
sure,
on
yeah.
university, especially when school's in, it can be difficult to get open space, yeah.
Now, I mean, a counterexample would be San Diego Drupal Camp, which they are not directly associated with any university, but they do have a consistent facility that they go to at the marina.
The
So-
marina,
Yeah.
it's like little daily office, like classroom rental.
Which is a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It
it's
is.
close, and it's got that good cohesive feel. You don't have to go very far, but yeah, but they look like they rent that facility every year.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, well, it's like they switched to it, and because they had been at a university actually, and it was lots of collisions with students, and because there were classes going on at the same time as sessions, so you'd actually have like students going like, "Whoa, shit, I'm in the wrong place," or just sneaking through. It was logistically a problem, in that particular circumstance on that particular campus. And then when they found this kind of like detached facility, it worked really well. There's a hotel across the street. Yeah.
My dad in for San Camp, they're also throwing their event in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing, it's like event space in the off season. Right, so San Diego is all about weddings. When do weddings happen? In the spring. So, it's like, know your locale, right? Know when are you going to be able to, maybe you'd be able to cut a deal with an event facility. If you come in and say, yeah, I'm going to bring 500 people, and, can you do me a deal if we do it in January? If we do it in sometime when you would normally have a shop.
But we've also had some issues with coordinating, or when we time our events sometimes.
Yes.
And others.
Yeah, it's
So-
before the HTML week, so.
Yeah.
Well, there's
Always
Oracle,
something going
there's
on in San
football,
Francisco.
there's like.
That's why the hotels are so
business-
expensive, we apologize, open oracle's going on, anything close to a BART stop is full.
Yeah, and Pacific Northwest Camp
Yeah,
was
we-
running into, like, they had to talk to those organizers.
They had to change it, and then it was actually Canadian Thanksgiving, and they're a Tri-City with Vancouver, so their audience can come. Well, a lot of them did.
Yeah,
Well,
but yeah, it's like actually with the larger camps, it's good to actually coordinate with each other, especially if you have like the same kind of target audience, because there's a lot of people who actually want to go to
As
to
many
both.
camps as they can.
Yeah,
And
it's like-
sponsors as well, like they may not sponsor all the camps if they're so close together.
Yeah, it's like because like for actually a number of us who went to both. I mean, logistically over the past few weeks, it's just been very difficult because you're literally flying back and forth. Spacing out camps, actually talking with one another, and said, can we have like a month or two space between them is healthy for the community.
Yeah, and Mid-Camp did a really good job at this. And they looked at where all the camps were, and they took a time, like, it's not going to conflict with a lot of the Eastern Seaboard camps, and it was a nice time between all the other, like, the bigger West Coast camps and stuff. So, good job, guys.
There's a question in
We
the
have a
back.
massive spreadsheet of like all the camps' history over like the past 3 years when they have been, so we can kind of predict things, and then we talk to all the camps and we are like, tell us as soon as you know your dates, like put them in here and let's see if there are any conflicts.
So I think we've semi-officially locked in next year, same weekend. So yeah, don't collide. But you had a question?
Yeah, just wondering how big was your budget and how much of your time did you spend having to raise it?
Oh, these two guys.
Yeah, well, so for it's about $100,000 to run BADCamp. Those are rough numbers. About 15% of that is directly for just scholarships to help people come. The rest of it's a lot of facilities and food and like that kind of stuff.
Mention our biggest contributor.
And to raise that money, there's a few different sources. So like, and most honestly, have the sponsorship money and works with a lot of businesses to fund this, which is actually really important. It's, you know, to get a table downstairs, for example, it's $2,000 for a business to do it, which is a lot of money, I think, anyway, but it's also a commitment from the business to send 4 staff to man that table for a number of days, to fly them in, to get them a hotel. And so you really have to make a valuable pitch to them that like, we're gonna do something that'll be helpful to the community you're in, to the software project you work on, and give people reasons to sort of invest in that. And that can get tricky. We have like 30 sponsors, 20.
Yeah, I think it was like 19 for the entry level sponsors. There's another 2 core, which is something I'm happy on. And then the summits are add-ons, so it's like if you want to speak like Think Show or Atten, they sponsor the summit, so it's an additional $2K per summit, and that facilitates. Pretty much all goes into a one big pot to cover all of BADCamp for everything, but it's broken up so the sponsors can have certain things.
There's another like 15 or so sponsors that are just website sponsors.
Yeah.
Some anchor sponsors for the big ones. You know, people that get a table, and then people who just like sort of can post jobs on the website, have a logo. In terms of how much time, I would say that like there's a lot of time in it. It's been helpful because we build long-term relationships with the companies that we're doing it. So a lot of it's like, hey, would you like to do it again? Would you like to do it again? If you're looking to sort of get sponsorship money, one of the great things to talk to different events, like Ann and I'd be happy to share people we've talked to at different companies and sort of get in there. You know, the earlier you ask them, typically the better too. I think it's sort of often hard to get in people's schedules.
I go around at DrupalCon and I'm like, hey, guess who's coming? Make your money. That'll be up soon.
And it's interesting, you can see as there was the first rounds that are like always going to be there and get there. And I saw like the sponsorship was like, okay, the first chunk. And then actually toward the end was quite a huge like
we got like
increase.
we always get a few last minute sponsors, and we save those. And we're like, okay, maybe we'll have like 1 or 2 tables. And unfortunately, I actually have to turn some away. And we very rarely have to turn them away.
Yeah, and I didn't say that really clearly, but our individual sponsors, you guys, were they the largest?
Absolutely, the largest chunk of support is from the people who come to buy the hoodies and the T-shirts and or like not buy but like contribute as a sort of donor, or take a training and just buy our like T-shirt that doesn't actually cost $25 but is sort of fun for them, and then they support the event, and that I think has been awesome. That's 20-30% of all the money we're taking in now comes from those folks, and that's only increasing as people regularly come back. Like we were out of hoodies.
The solar panels were a huge hit.
People
love them.
We spent multiple weeks debating what that mid-tier sponsorship should be. Just so many emails back and forth, and then Kate found these amazing solar panels.
From my friend in China.
And then there are people coming up to the table, can I just buy a solar panel? Right? I just want a solar panel. So who knew?
We put BADCamp stickers on them. All sorts of things.
But one thing we said about the individual sponsorships, that they also more or less directly fund the scholarship pool. And so this year, for various reasons, we funded more scholarships than we've ever funded before, because companies are undergoing financial challenges. They're not sending as many people to travel. So you've noticed that we have companies that aren't well represented here that were here in previous years because of various reasons. And so we had to fund specific people we wanted to speak, to lead sessions, to lead summits. And we also historically have funded a lot of people who, this is their first Drupal camp. I'm from a country that's not in North America. I'd love to come to Drupal camp and spread this model back to my, my native city, whatever. And so we've done that historically over the last 5-6 years that I've been involved with, and we make special note of those who are international travelers, first-time BADCamp or Drupal event period experiencers, and then people we know we need to lead critical discussions.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into like the whole Drupal 8 kind of releases coming up, and so there's a ton of the Drupal 8 core front-end team here. There's a lot of core Drupal 8 people actually collaborating on site because they get a lot of work done together when they're at these camps. So those are also part of the scholarship team. They're also the speakers and they're leading up the initiatives, but it also helps get more people involved in Trib and core and mentorship. We've got Kathy Bass here and everything, and it's really awesome. It's amazing.
Building the resiliency in the community. To be clear, those companies that are might have financial hardship, BADCamp's not like subsidizing the companies. It's about the people who happen to work there who are contributing to Drupal and making sure that the voices are represented in this event, which is really a very diverse, and we want to keep it diverse and reach out, and that's a key part of the scholarship.
Oh, shout out to Kevin Fell, who made all the recordings possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've never really had recordings at BADCamp until this year, and he. We did?
Or Mark Ferry.
Oh, Mark Ferry, that's right, Mark Ferry. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we burned him out on recording.
What's that? Is everything recorded?
Yeah, everything.
All of the sessions,
We're being
right?
recorded right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Several different people, actually.
Unless we forgot to press the button.
Yeah.
No, I pressed it.
No, he did. Yeah. Sorry.
And along the lines of the sponsorship stuff, this is a big camp, right? And, it's a lot of money. So I've been involved in organizing a much smaller camp up in Sacramento, and it's actually pretty easy to get sponsorship. It's not really that hard. These Drupal companies are fantastic. You just, you contact them and, tell them what you're doing, and, you have to give them some kind of good reason why they should sponsor, but, in general, it's if you're running a smaller camp, the ask isn't really that big anyway, and they're almost always willing to do that. And, Aqua will send you a box of cheesy sunglasses to sit out somewhere or something. So, it's
Given a
it's
clear
pretty cool.
expectation of what they get.
What's that?
Yeah.
Given a clear expectation of
Yeah.
what they get, and
Yeah.
having a website up that
Yes.
describes, say, the venue and some expectations around it helps make the case. It's like, yes, this is a legit thing, because you were frustrated because at DCLA we didn't have as much. Did we even have the site up at that time?
No, the site was up.
The site was up the earliest it's been in a long time. Usually the thing is that we try to get it up before a lot of people are burning now. But it's very tricky. This year everybody got it.
I put the splash page up. I was
Yeah,
literally
features.
at a sprint at DCLA, and I put the splash page up at DCLA. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and one more thing. We should probably talk about tools before this is over. We used Zoom.us, not an endorsement. We used it for free, but it's great for remotes, because a lot of us are remote at any given time. Matt travels, I travel.
Although at some point, Four Kitchens, we were using theirs. So.
Yeah, and Four Kitchens, right. And was quasi here illegally in the States for a while.
It's being recorded. By the way.
It's not true.
But not true. And he's totally legal, and is a legitimate citizen of the United States. And we also use Slack. This is our first year using Slack.
That was great, actually.
And we were a little skeptical about the Slack thing going in, and now we're just constantly pinging each other on Slack, even for joke purposes. We have custom emojis, yeah. I think I added a Josh Koenig
And
emoji
actually,
in there.
we use Slack as our planning tool, but then that became our internal chat
Yeah.
thing during BADCamp.
And we have Google Docs Drive that is super full. We have copies of every agenda. It's viewable to everybody that's in the Google group. And I had, this year, instead of ad hocing meetings, I set up a recurring meeting for all 52 Wednesdays of the year, and then just specifically canceled ones when it didn't make sense. Oh, and here comes Jen. Yay! Yay, hi Jen. And so, yeah, so Google Drive. And then previous years we used Dropbox more aggressively, but less so this year, mostly for creative assets. So we're big on the free tools. We're big on and Jira. I'm going to use Jira to track issues, which was huge this year. I got to give a special shout out to the web team this year who went through hell and high water. So Cheeky Money Media for design, Carson for engineering, John for engineering and project managing a lot of it, Bob for basically writing every user story on this website.
Phil's not here, but
Phil Bowden. Yeah, Phil Bowden.
Free hosting for Pantheon.
Yeah, Pantheon hosting. Free
And
hosting.
one other thing that I did, because all these guys know everything, and I'm sort of new in this area, and so I made a spreadsheet where stuff is.
Yeah.
So, okay, what tool, who do you contact, where is it? And it's just a simple starting point.
Yeah, and like as far as like it was wonderful because like being new in BADCamp, we can actually use some of those historical assets you guys put in that drive to start us up to get going. And then when we were making our own assets for planning and things, you guys, everybody could see it and contribute and use that information. So it made the process so much easier because you're not constantly having to ping everybody in the middle of the night if you're doing the work at that point. So, but yeah, it was really well organized.
Thank you for contributing resources.
Oh, and you know what?
From a staffing perspective, I was in David Shea's event, and Jen was like the circus wrangler a long time ago, and then Matt was, and then Stephanie Gannon, and then I was, and then David. And it's so nice to see new people out. It's so nice. And there's so many people, like Molly ran the nonprofit summit with Stephanie and Eric, and there's so many people that are involved that aren't here. But it takes like time away from you.
But you know, it's funny because like Patrick and other people on the team are like, we want to contribute, but we don't know anybody. And it's like, okay, well, let's do this. And it's like, you're going to know people now, and you're going to be able to get into that, and they're loving it. And yeah, and Genevieve's like, I have great ideas for the design manager, let's do it. So, and they're so grateful.
One other, I should give one other shout out is, it was amazing this year to have a consistent meeting space that we didn't have to be like hobos to bounce from place to place, what we've done from before. And Kalamuna, we came and ate all their food and drank all their beer and cider and stayed till midnight playing board games
and worked in their office all day before the meeting. Thanks, guys.
And we did bring a hammock to hang outside.
And slept in their hammocks. So
happy bowls of soup in their office.
oh yeah, we left all our dirty dishes in there and used all their cups. So thank you, Kalamuna, for having us. It's
like BADCamp every week. That's our pleasure.
If I had to distill, everybody's like, what makes BADCamp work, right? People always like, how do you guys do it every year? I mean, I think it shows when you see the people here. It boils down to trust, it boils down to familiarity, knowing what you're doing, knowing what everybody's role is, and trusting that the person who's doing it's got this, or you can cover them when you need to in a pinch. And there's always pinches, right? And that kind of trust is only really built in knowing people year after year, being socially active with each other. At Jen's wedding this summer, there was a BADCamp table, literally just BADCamp people all sitting together, right? There was a house that was all BADCamp people.
They were with you, actually.
What's that? Oh, there were a couple houses that were all BADCamp people. Like that can't be understated, like having a team that's cohesive, that lasts over years, that has a relationship and a reason for being other than BADCamp, even if BADCamp is the initiator of that relationship, is really key, and I think it shows with the way
If
we
you're
do it.
thinking of starting an event, don't stop because you haven't done it before.
Yeah.
Know that if you start it, you'll grow family and friends and the community and be part of something special in your area too.
Thanks for coming, guys.